Hi, I'm Alan. I'm going to show you how to make a coffee cup out of laminated plywood. This is a plywood cut, let's see, 6 by 5 I think. 5 by 6. 5 by 6 plywood. 22 pieces cut and then glued together with normal wood glue. So I'll show you how to cut and make a coffee cup. This will be put on the inside of it. I'll put epoxy resin. So we'll see how that's done. Alrighty, now it's time to, I'm going to drill a 3-inch hole in the wood, and I think I'll go, I'll leave probably 1/4 of an inch on the bottom. So let's go, looks like exactly 5 inches. My drill press can drill 5 inches, so possibly that'll work. So we'll give that a shot. Now I hold my pieces on my drill bit with these rockler clamps, and these clamps, they have kind of a locking mechanism where you can adjust them, and they're pretty handy. So I do most of my drilling with these rockler clamps when I can hold it steady. Now I do have for like rounded stuff or something that's really crazy, I made a jig, and this jig, you can put the jig in the clamps like this, and put the clamps down, and then you can put some other clamps right in here and hold whatever you're drilling down to hold it in place if you have something that's a real strange size or whatever. So I have that. That's good to have. So let's get this drilled. So usually I have a template of this is the template I made, and it's the outside of the cup. This right here is the handle, and this is like the inner part. This is the part we're going to drill. So basically it's a good idea to figure out exactly where we're going to drill, and maybe I can get this in there. So I'm just going to line this up right here. I think that's the best. Now these rockler clamps, you can adjust them into place. What you do is like tighten them and then just like move them by holding the adjustable thing into place. So like move it, untighten it, move it into place. Right here you can adjust this ring, which adjusts it into place and holds it. So what you do is you tighten it down, and then you hold your thumb on it, and then hold your thumb on it, and then that locks it into place as you hold your thumb on it. So it's a way to really tighten it. Half an inch, maybe a half an inch. So I have more than enough room to make the handle. So the handle is going to protrude this way. We're going to drill the hole down this way. So I need to make sure that I have more than enough wood on the back side of the cup to where it's not too thin and it doesn't become a problem. Maybe I'll go just a little more. Okay. Now I'm hoping that this bit is really sharp that can cut through this wood. I'm going to push. Okay. Supposedly that'll lock it in place. Okay, that's better. Now we're locked in place. Now we can drill. Now my drill has a setting on it where I can drill the depth. So I'm going to go all the way up to 5 inches. Okay, so here we go. We should be okay. We're rock solid. Alrighty, I cleaned up my shavings. Now we finished drilling. Let's check the depth. There's the hole. So, measure it. Let's measure it. You got 4 1/4. So I don't know, I probably need to go another 3/4. So I'm going to raise up the table and go another 3/4 of an inch, and that should finish up the hole. So we got to go another 3/4. So let me raise up the table. Just take a minute. So I got to go another 3/4 of an inch, and so I adjusted my depth of my drill press for roughly 3/4 of an inch. So we'll just go a little bit farther, and then we'll have it. This is kind of scary. Very good, so I'm going to back off. That didn't sound too good. I might have gone to the bottom. You can't really trust depth gauges very much on drill bits. So you can't trust depth gauges on drill bits, on drill presses. They're not super accurate. It really depends on the gauge that you have. Mine is kind of wonky. So you have to kind of be careful. I made a funny sound, so I'm going to pull the table down and pull the piece out and see how far it went down. So I pulled out the bit And it scared me for a second because I thought I drilled through the bottom of it, which you don't want to do. That's about over 4.5, which I think that's close enough. I'm just going to make the bottom a little thick, so I'm going to make the bottom about 3/4 of an inch. So this is what it looks like. And I'm going to put the template on and do the outside, and then mark where the handle's going to be, and then we can take it to the bandsaw and we can cut around the outside. Okay, so I've taken my template and I marked around the hole. See that? I marked around the hole, I put it, and I marked around it with a pencil. And I marked the outside of the cup. And now, the next step is to take it to the bandsaw and cut around the outside of the cup on the bandsaw. Pretty simple, not too hard, pretty easy. So let's cut around the outside of our pencil marks. And then the next step will be to cut out the handle. And we'll use a jigsaw and a drill. We'll drill a hole in the handle, and first we'll mark where we want the handle to be, and then we'll drill a hole. We'll insert a jigsaw in the hole, and then we'll cut around the inside of the handle. So let's go. You always want to shut off the bandsaw when you're at the end of a cut to ensure that you don't pull the blade off the rollers, because you can break the blade by doing that. So you got to be really careful about that. Just one more cut. There we go. This is some fairly good grade plywood. There's not a lot of void. So now it's time for the handle, and I'm missing a lot of wood in the handle. I think I'm gonna might make it look kind of funky, but I'm gonna, I think, cover this with filler across here, because this is just not enough meat to get your fingers into and to leave areas for a handle. So I think I'm going to cover in all this missing wood right here. So I'll get that done, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so I've decided, instead of putting glue and sawdust on this handle right here, if it'll focus, I want to put epoxy so it'll be clear. So imagine a clear solid area of epoxy up right across here, and that'll give enough room to cut the handle in and to make enough room for the fingers. And I think that'll look really cool because it'll be clear, and you'll see this jagged edge right here. I'm not going to smooth it down, I'm just going to leave it. I think that'll look really cool. So all this glue then I need to sand off. If you can see, this glue needs to be sanded off. So yeah, I think maybe I might use a wire wheel on it, or I could even use a Dremel, but I want to keep this square look to it, just for kind of a cool effect. I think it'll look neat. So, and then these ripples, I don't know if you can see them, these ripples right here need to be smoothed down, if you can see them. So I'll do that with the belt sander. So let me put some gloves on. Okay, so now it's smoother, if you can see, if it'll focus. It's smoother, and I also went and sanded off the glue. So now we're ready to put epoxy on it. What I'll do is I'll put, I think if I can get away with it, I'm going to put duct tape around the sides of it, and then fill it up with epoxy, and then that'll give it its height. So I might go maybe a ½ inch above that height maybe, and then I'll film me doing that here in a minute. Okay, so I put T-Rex tape around it, And then I poured some water in it, and then there were no leaks. So we won't have any leaks of the epoxy. So now I'm going to go mix the epoxy. I'm going to use Total Boat epoxy, and that's a 50-50% mix. And I think I'll do about maybe 80 milliliters, maybe 100 milliliters. And then pour it in, and then we'll let it dry, and then we'll see what happens. So I've mixed up Total Boat epoxy, about 100 millimeters, 50-50. So 50 of hardener and then 50 of resin. And then I mixed it, I usually mix my epoxy for 3 minutes. Make sure your epoxy is totally mixed. And I use a scale, and I go by milliliters, so I just do, 50 of one and 50 milliliters of the other. So I have about 100 milliliters of epoxy. So we're going to pour it into here, let her sit for 24 hours, and then we should be ready to carve out the handle. So let's pour it in. So we'll let it sit for 24 hours. Usually I'm not really worried about the surface. There's a lot of bubbles on the surface, and usually when you get bubbles on the surface of epoxy, you take a blow dryer and blow it off, but I'm not really concerned about that. So it looks like it's holding. So we'll just let that sit for 24 hours. We'll come back. So the epoxy is dried 24 hours. So this, if the camera will focus, this is what it looks like. If you can see. It kind of bowed out a little bit, but now let's take off the tape. Now the tape might have stuck to the epoxy. I might have to sand off the tape where the tape is on the epoxy. So let's see, let's put it in a vise. So usually I made a vise that I took the jaws off this vise and I soldered 2 metal rods to the end of the jaws. I actually had it welded by a welder. And then I took a bicycle tube, and then you take the bicycle tube and then you fit it over the jaws or the rods, and then you grab the middle of it and then pull it in, and then you have a nice vise that won't scar the wood of your cup. And so you can like work on the cup if you need it. So you can sand on it, work on it, so it grabs the edge of the cup without hurting the cup. So it's really solid. So let's take off this tape if we can. Yeah, it's going to come off. It's not going to stick. Hopefully. This T-Rex tape is really good tape. There we go. This might take it. How about that? It's coming off. There you go. That worked out well. That worked out okay. Okay, so you can see now, this will focus, that it's come off, and you can see now that we have a epoxy for a handle, and now all they need to do is draw out the inside of the handle. Take a jigsaw, it might come up into here. Draw out the handle, take a jigsaw, take a drill a hole, put the jigsaw through the hole, and then cut out the handle. So let me do that, and then I'll come back to you. This will be the next step. So let's do that. So I marked out cutting the handle. I'm going to cut the outside of the handle on the bandsaw. So I marked it with a Sharpie. That's what it looks like, if you can see it. If the camera will focus. So we'll cut this out on the bandsaw and see how it looks. Oh, and to cut it out, you need to put a block underneath it so it sits and it doesn't rock around. So this can be dangerous, so you need to be careful. Always use gloves when you're using saws. It's a good idea. So that's done. That's kind of cool. Maybe keep that. I don't know. So that's how that looks. So now the outside is cut. So now I'm going to drill a hole about a large bit, big enough to fit the blade of my jigsaw, which I'll get out in a minute, and cut out the inside of the hole. But first I have to drill a hole in it so I can get the blade in it. So I cut out the handle outside of it. Now I'm going to drill a hole. I'm going to use a real big bit to drill it about, I don't know, right there. So we can get the blade of the jigsaw into the handle so we can cut out the inside. So if you don't know what a jigsaw is, I'll show it to you after I get this done. And we'll cut a hole around it. And the jigsaw blades have a removable blade. And you remove the blade, you put the blade through the hole, and then you mount it back onto the jigsaw and cut the hole. So we'll get this prepared for the jigsaw. Always I use a block to support the handle when I'm drilling a hole. So I using any block that I use all the time, I just label it jig, so I don't throw it away. So I always have it. So this jig is for supporting handles on the cups when I'm working on the handle so they're stable. So here we go. Okay, there's the hole on the handle. Now I get my jigsaw out and get it set up to cut out the inside. Now I have my jigsaw set up. It's really a scroll saw. You can buy these at Harbor Freight for about, I don't know, 80, 150 bucks. So go to Harbor Freight. And so to loosen up the blade, take this off, push down, take this cap off, and then the blade comes out. And then when you put a jigsaw blade in, you want the teeth pointing downward. So make sure that you put the blade in correctly. So what you do is you insert the blade through the hole, and then this is kind of tricky. You have to put the blade back in the jigsaw. So now my blade is facing that way. So I did it because it's hard to get the handle around this. So now I'm going to tighten it up. Okay, and now I get my jig. So it might be too high. It might be a smaller piece of wood.